Okay, all right, so I'm gonna do a tutorial on NgRx, okay, and so that is well, I've done three different projects using ngrx, and it's very complex. However, I can't show this code because it's proprietary. But what I have here is a fairly simple ngrx demo, which instead of building it from scratch, I'm going to elaborate on this. So this one right here, so you can see here I'm running the code, and it is this part right here is already ngrx. It's very simple. You increment by 2 and you decrement by 1. So this is already ngrx. So I'm going to use this like typically project you will come in there already some ngrx, and you're gonna have to build something else. So I'm gonna build a next module right here, also ngrx store, complete with all the component here, complete with the action reducer, the store selector, and component. So we'll start out building the component, and what's basically a user objects, okay, user and a string username, and then a number, which is we can use age as a name, or okay, and then persist that object. So I'm going to proceed and show you how to build the action, how to build the reducer to store that objects, and use a selector to pull it out and then display it. So you can remove that user, or remove or add a users. Okay, all right. So let's start out with the HTML. So just to show the build out right here, and then we proceed with the other pieces. So this is the code that is already existing. So it's like you join a project, is already some existing. So you already have this counter controller. This counter is for this one right here. Just count up and count down. And your our job now is to add a user. Okay, so all this user here, so we're gonna create, the store is already here. So I'm gonna create a new folder called users. Okay, and in there I'm going to create the user component HTML. Okay, just display like we just discussed. So for adding a user and removing a user, okay, component. Okay, so similar to the right here, this is app component. We're gonna have the user component. Okay, so the user component is gonna be counter component. So let's start out something similar here, and then we trim it up. So it's gonna have a border also, and then it's gonna have a button to basically this button here to click. So we just need to a button to add a user. Okay, so let's call it on add user, and the user gonna take a parameter, username, and the value of the username, and also user age. Okay, the value of that. But since it's a string, we want to convert it to a number. So I'm pretty sure you probably already done this before. You do use parse int. Okay, and let's call it add user. Okay, so now we have a add user buttons. We need to input. So so we just have two input. One is username, and the other one is age. I just want a number, so it can be anything, or it can be a password. You know, if you want to store a username, password for a user login. Okay. All right, and second input So this, all this right now is not even have anything to do with NgRx yet, of course. This is just a standard input output. Okay, so user age, type equal number, placeholder is age. Okay, all right, so that will get us and let's put this over in an app component. We're gonna have a define a use app user here. Okay, and next also is very important is there is a user interface that I'm gonna bring in. Basically, oops, sorry. Basically, I have to create this interface users that basically we just mentioned, string and a age. Let's see, a number. It can be a password or whatever, string, but I just want a string and a number. We export it. Okay, so this one, and I just create a user component to go with along with the HTML. It's gonna have an observable, just the same thing as same way that we have observable over here. These basically just gonna be ngrxJS to bring in as a value change. Okay, and then import in this import in the user that we just defined. Okay, and this users in the constructor same way that we have this over here. Okay, so I'll just put this side by side so you can see. So in the constructor, the store, you have it select out from the store. So I'm gonna have this users observable return store select user, except right now we don't have select user yet. Okay, now I need to fix this up here. So I want to list all the user, so basically it's a UL. Okay, so li just a looping through, and use the async. Same way the async is being used over the so I'm going to list out the name, age, okay, and then I'm going to need a button to remove it too. So then that I will implement the remove in a little bit. So passing the name so we know what to remove, and the button is going to say remove, so you allow you to add and remove. Okay, so I will implement this in a second. Okay, so actually I can go ahead and do remove name string. Okay, let's leave it empty for now. So because it's basically it's gonna invoke the actions, okay, and then from there it'll invoke the reducer and then all that. So just leave it up for now. Okay, so seems the only thing that is right here. Click, hold on, and then up on top here, instead of returning counter, I want to return the total user, right? Okay, so that's gonna be, instead of count, that's why the code I copy from. Same thing with async, but I'm gonna I want the length. Okay, so it's gonna be async, wrap around this whole thing, and then I'll do the length on it. So this, remember, user with a plural is actually an array of users. So we do length. Okay. All right, just question mark is, yeah, if it's available, then run the length. All right, so okay, so everything's compiled here. So let's proceed to the next one. Let's build out the action. So we just finished the component here for the HTML and the TS. Okay, so that's right here. So it's similar to the counter, and we built the users, which is the counter is just a number, but for us, name and age, that's an object. So let's proceed to build out the action and the reducers. Okay. So for the user action, typically we go into the store. So here are the actions. So this is the action for the counters. So we want an action for the user. So we do new file, user action, TS. Okay. All right. So you see how it has the increment action, all this. Let's copy this over. Remove this one we don't use, and rename this to add user action. Create action is correct. This actually can be anything really. So let's just call this user action. The string here is actually not significant. And then this one is called remove user action. All right. And the difference here also is that when you remove, you passing the name and the string. Okay. And we're on the add, you pass in an object. So the object is user, and that object is another, inside that is an object. So you do string age number. Yep, so that should be the actions equivalent to right here. So when you parallel everything, so that's the code will be consistent. And after we build the action, by ngrx that it will be invoke the reducer. Okay, so we're going to build the reducer next. All right, so the counter has a reducer here, so we can copy the similar code. All right, and then we have the user reducer, so we create right here. New file. It's going to be user reducer TS. Let's put it over here. All right, we're going to clone it at first and then change it. All right, so instead of call counter reducer, we're going to have user reducer. Okay, and it is going to be a create reducer. And of course, the action here, like we had, was add user action right there, and then remove user action. All right, and same thing, instead of passing in the user, instead of passing in the number, we passing in entire user. So the state here is gonna be action. Okay, so let's look at the user action. We basically passing a new user object, and we want the state. We create new objects. You have to spread the state, okay, and then add that new user to the array. So the way we do that is basically we passing in state, comma, and then we passing in the user. Okay, so overall picture, if we're just adding a user object, but we always add it using a spread operator. So okay, so we can do so we're going to create a new array, okay, spread the old state, okay, and add a new user that to the array, and that's it. Okay, right here we definitely don't use this anymore, but we do need to import a user. Also right here, initial state, we want to do export const user state, initial user state. User state right here is actually gonna be array of user. That's how we're gonna start, and we're gonna start users. So right here, which is import, okay, and changing the initial state because that was a counter initial state. Now it's initial user state, okay, and then this right here is out. Okay, so down here we want to remove. So best way to remove is to use a filter and pass anything that's not equivalent to that username. Okay, and then that's it. That should be it. So basically we're passing in the state, and let's remove all this. Okay, so we're passing in the state and the username. Okay, so that's what we're passing in, and we're gonna do state filter user. So we pass filter just to do a test, but anything that passed this test, so we're removing the name. So anything is not a name, should pass. Okay. Okay, so we don't use a set. So okay, so now we created reducers and it compiles fine. We next is to create the selectors. Okay, so we're gonna base on the existing counter selectors. So let's move this counter selector over here. Okay, and we're gonna create a new our own. It's gonna be same thing, user selectors ts. Let's put it over here, and let's copy this to start out with. We don't need the double. Okay. This one, use a feature selectors. That's and it's not, it says select users. Remember, we selecting a bunch of user. Okay, and then simply generic TypeScript. Remember, we're returning array of user, right? Okay, and select basically just users. So just import. That should take care of that. All right. Okay, so we have build selector, store, reducer, action. Let's take a look what else. Let's take a look at app module here. Okay, so all right, so we have a store modules counters. Say we just need to add beside the counter, we just add user, right? User is array of users. So what it is right here, similar to what we see here, is a reducer. It just need to grab the user reducer. Okay. So user reducer is in here somewhere. Okay. It's not a function, and it's already brought in automatically for us from the reducer that we built right here. So it's all there. Okay. So this is good. Okay. All right, so now we have built them all. Let's revisit the component TS that we haven't basically had some empty function earlier. Okay, so let's go back to the component TS. Remember, we have this. We left this empty because we haven't built the action of reducer back then. All right, let's take care of that right now. All right. So on the constructors, so we select, we put this any right here, but what we want is select users, because we just built them already. So we good, and we just need them import them. Okay, and then as remember, if you look at the component controller TS here, so you can tell that it's all calling a bunch of dispatch. We're doing the same thing, so we just doing the same thing, just fix it up a little bit. So here we dispatch, instead of increment action, we do add user actions. That's all. And then remember, we're passing in the user. When we add, we passing in object of user, name and age. So the object is name and age. Okay, same thing. On remove the dispatch, instead of that we do remove user actions, and then instead of the values here, we simply pass in the name. Okay, so clean this up a little bit. And everything seems to compile fine so far. And yeah, so everything seems to compile so far. Let's take a look at compile again. And it compiles good. Let's open up 4200, and there you go. All right, see, let's test it out. So let's do this. Andrew, let's say I'm 100 years old. Add user, yep, very good. And let's say Bob, is 1 year old. Yeah, looks good. Let's remove Angel. Yeah, hey, excellent. Yep, and this still the way before. Yeah, so that is let's summarize it up. So what we did, okay. So in summary, what we built here is we start by creating the user interface, because that contains the name and age of what we want to persist to NgRx, and from there we go ahead and we build iterate through and display all the user right here, and also fetch the input, the add user. From there we invoke add user. Okay, so add user is right here. Add user basically dispatch an action. That's standard NgRx, and also remove actions. Okay, and if you follow the action, basically use create actions. Okay, and in this case, the add user, we pass in the name and value, and the name and age, and then over here we basically remove user. We just pass in the name so it can remove, and so that is tied to the reducers right here. User action, you reducer. Okay, so reducer is what it does to the store, and reducer is very important that we create a new it's making sure it's immutable. So because shallow compare, it needs to know, so we have to spread the operator to create a new state. So that's how it is. You can't just change the state directly, you have to create a new state. So what this one does, it just basically create a new array and grab the old array and tag on a new user, and so it add it. Okay, and then this same thing, this is filter, is basically passing everything that is not a name, so just leaving out the name, so that's equivalent to removing the name. Okay, so that is a reducer. Okay, and then we use the selectors. So for this is for persisting to the store, and we also create the selectors. This is just straightforward grabbing the array of user so that it can display, and then back over here it's back over in the right here. So it is using selector, able to retrieve the names and iterate and display all the names. Okay, and that is, and the way as the beauty of and the whole idea of NgRx is that the store automatically update because user is observable. Okay, so whatever you use as a selector that we select user, the selector selects it onto this observable. Okay, this observable is an async. Okay, so as long as you program it this way, you code up with an async, then this observable will automatically here will this observable will automatically updates it. So as you change it here, it automatically update. So that's the beauty, is centralized model. That's what NgRx. Yeah, so it's a lot of, you have to go through and create action, reducer, selector. But the beauty is that it's all, once you create all the boilerplate, it works pretty well. Yeah, so that's NgRx. So that's strictly just a front end. Now, if you want to persist to the back end, I have another video. Okay, so if you look under my resume, there is a link. Under references, you go through the cover page. Under references, I provide 3 references, and there is the back end. So this is the video that the front end and NgRx are here, And then the back end, I did. I spent over 21 plus year in the back end relational database. So I built one of the largest database in the East Coast for Army, Navy, Air Force. You can contact Charles Green. He will vouch for my work on design on the relational database large scale. And this video, I go into detail on the Oracle and also Mongo. Basically give you a tutorial, a pretty advanced feature like a multi-dimensional. I've done like as much as 5 table joins, so I'm pretty much 21 plus years, so I'm pretty much an expert on the back end, not just the front end but also the back end. I have about 15 years plus on the front end. So right here, the second one, David Weibel, he can vouch for my front end. This is what this video is, the NgRx, and then also the REST and Spring Boot. I spent at least over first time I used Spring Boot. I used about 5 different company. Spring Boot, first time I used was like around 2003, so about 19 years ago, and I've been using a total of 5 different companies, so I know Spring Boot like back of my hand. But I also that's Java, and also I also built backend instead of Spring Boot using type ORM, so same thing, but in JavaScript. So this video talks about the Spring Boot and type ORM. So here you can contact this person right here as your reference. So I have reference for all my work. So because I've been doing it for 33 years, so I consider as 21 plus expert on a database, 15 year plus expert on front end, and also another 21 plus year on expert on the back end and Spring Boot stuff. But watching my other video here. They give you insight to my other areas. These are all pretty much standard technology that I've been building. So thank you for watching. All right, thank you. Bye bye.